Good morning, dear learners. Welcome to 21st Century Literature from the Philippines and the World, second quarter, week 3. So this will be our objective for today, explain the literary, graphical, linguistic, and social-cultural context, and discuss how they enhance the text meaning and enrich the reader's understanding. Our topic for today is about contextual reading approaches. So there are different reading approaches that can help you to better understand each text. Look at the following words that I'm going to show you. We have here literary, linguistic, context, biographical, and social-cultural. So pause this video and try to look for the meaning of the words using your dictionary or Google. Okay, if you're done, let's now move on to our next slide. Contextual reading approaches. All literary texts were written by authors with different background, culture, society, language, etc. On the other hand, you, as a reader, also differ from the writer and other readers of the literary text. This lesson will help you understand the different literary texts that you will encounter not only in this course but also during your leisure reading. This will help you understand text based on their author's biography, society, and language, and how these factors connect to your own experience and reading. Let's try to read and analyze the following examples. First example, Manuel E. Argilias, How My Brother Leon Brought Home a Wife, is a story told through Baldos, Leon's brother, point of view. He narrated how Leon brought his soon-to-be wife, Maria, in their hometown in La Union to meet his family. To analyze this story, let us first consider some facts about Argilia. Argilia was born on June 17, 1911 in La Union to Crisanto Argilia and Margarita Estabilio. He was the fourth child and his family owned a small piece of land in their town. He was married to Lydia Villanueva, who was from Ermita, Manila. Example number 2, Dead Stars by Paz Marquez Benitez. Under straight recalcitrant hair, a thin face with a satisfying breadth of forehead, slow, dreamer's eyes, and astonishing freshness of lips. Indeed, Alfredo Salazar's appearance betokened little of exuberant masculinity, rather a poet with wayward humor, a fastidious artist with keen, clear brain. Literary reading through biographical context. While it is important to know the characters in a literary text, it is also essential for readers to understand the author's background. Through studying the author, they may be able to connect their characteristics and their morals to the author's life and analyze the patterns of behavior shown between and among the characters, the author, and the reader himself. After all, it is through getting to know others that we also get to know ourselves better. So with that, let me just explain to you the example one that I okay. So based on the facts presented, we can infer that Argelius, how my brother Leon brought home a wife, was a creative retelling of how his then girlfriend Lydia Villanueva met his fox in La Union. Moreover, Maria fondly calls Leon Noel, which also reads as Leon in a reverse manner, or simply referring to the author, since his first name was Manuel. The Ilocano culture of calling an older woman or man manang or manong, respectively, was also evident. Additionally, this story was published during the American occupation in the country, since the country as a whole was transgressing from its conservative roots. Not to mention that the English language was widely used then. Perhaps this was Argilius' way of preserving his Ilocano upbringing. So it is about the author itself. So it's about the author's background. Vocabulary, biography comes from the Greek words bios, which means life, and graphia, which means writing. A detailed account or narrative of a person written by someone else. An autobiography, also narrative of a person, but written by the person himself or herself. So these are just some take notes or key takeaways that you're going to use when you are using the biographical context. So all of these are on your module already. So here are some examples of literary works written by authors of different backgrounds. In their sample writings, their personal stories and beliefs reflect the way they project the characters in their narrative. So it simply means it's all about themselves, okay? It's all about herself or himself. It's all about his story, experiences, since it is about the biography of a person. Moving on to the next one, we have literary reading through a socio-cultural context. So from the word socio-cultural, aside from understanding a literary text through a biographical perspective, it is also important to note the year or period it was written. Readers would be able to identify the historical events that took place in that year. We would also find out the roots of an event's cause and the reasons behind the characters, motives, and interests. So, pwedeng nanggagaling po yung experience ng nasa text based doon sa event na nangyari doon sa year na ibinigay ng author. So, essential question, just answer it maybe through your mind. Why would a particular event or an outside situation affect a literary piece? So later on, I guess we can able to answer this question. Some vocabulary we have here, literary theory refers to different schools of thought and body of ideas that can be used as a tool in understanding literary context. And we have sociocultural, it means of relating to or involving a combination of cultural and social factors. The following are reasons to read literature through socio-cultural context. Bakit po ba importante or mahalaga ang socio-cultural context in trying to reading every text? Reading using the socio-cultural context helps you understand the social, economic, political, and cultural forces affecting the work that you are reading. Pwede daw po nakaka-apekto yung na-experience niya based dun sa social, sa economic, so economy siguro ng year na yon, and sino-sino ba yung mga politicians ng year na yon, kung bakit ganun yung culture nila. So that may affect yung text itself. And lastly, analyzing the socio-cultural context of the text makes you examine the role of the audience or the reader itself in shaping the literature. So again, all of these are on your module. Just take note of the following before reading a text through socio-cultural context. You may use several sociological, economical, and cultural perspectives when reading using the socio-cultural context. Marxism is one of the famous perspectives used for this reading. Feminism naman po, queer theory, historicism, postcolonialism, and new historicism are also perspectives or literary theories that you may use. So eto po, no, we have Marxism, literature shows the class struggle. No? Feminism naman po from the word feminine, examines the role of the women in the literature. Next is queer theory with the queer or the third gender. Next, we have the historicism or traditional historical criticism is a perspective dealing with the history that influenced the writing of literature. Postcolonialism is a literary perspective that looks into the changes in the attitude of post-colonies after the colonial period. And then lastly, we have the new historicism is another perspective in the socio-cultural context. So it focuses not only on the history, when the literary text was written, but also how the history happened. So kung paano daw po nangyari yung history is involved. Meron po siyang involvement doon sa text na ginawa po ng mga author. So all of those perspectives are under socio-cultural context. Yan. So we have the third one now. We have literary reading through a linguistic context. From the word linguistic. Take note of that, okay? Linguistic. So according to David Richter, practically everything we do that is specifically human is expressed in language. This is why literary texts can be read through the context of the language used to write the text as well as the way language is used in the text. This literary reading adheres to Roland's famous maxim, the author is dead. Reading through a linguistic context focuses on the language used in the literary work and how it is used to convey meaning. So, magpo-focus naman po ito doon sa language used from the word linguistic, sa mga words na ginamit po ng ating mga author. As you can see in here, we have an essential question which is what is the importance of understanding the way language is used in a literary text? So what's the importance of those understanding the way language is used? Okay, vocabulary, we have the word linguistics, means of or relating to language or the study of language. Next, we have syntax, the study of how linguistic elements form phrases, clauses, or sentences. Here are some reasons to read literature through the linguistic context. Reading the text on its own, regardless to the author's biography and social-cultural context, may help you understand the literary text just through analyzing the words, sentences, the patterns, the imagery, or etc. of the text. Analyzing the literary text, grammar, syntax, or phonemic pattern may help you find the meaning of the text within its form and help you interpret it by simply analyzing the content of the literary work. So yan po yung mga titingnan po natin, no? So these are just some of the strategies. Pwedeng tingnan natin yung diction, ano ba yung mga figurative language, ano ba yung mood at tone ng text mismo, at you need to analyze the overall structure. So all of those are under linguistic context. Moving on. Okay. So under linguistic context, we have three perspectives. We have the structuralism, refers or relates the text being examined to a large structure. Formalism is a school of literary criticism and literary theory that focuses on the structure of a particular text. And then post-structuralism. Okay, so with that, let's now move on to critical reading strategies in literature. Inhale and exhale. Moving on to the critical reading strategies in literature. Okay. So, syempre, pag sinabi nating literature, yung iba, makakatundo, nakakaantok. Ang haba-haba, paano ko po ba siya iintindihin? So, let's have some strategies, reading strategies on how can we able to understand every literary works. So, sometimes we read for entertainment, leisure, and fun. It takes a keen observer and valid researcher to become a critical reader. Being a critical reader means that you do not aim to simply memorize the facts and information in the text that you are reading. Being a critical reader means that you are looking for ways of thinking about the subject matter of the text that you are reading. Vocabulary, critic, entailed, mali po yung ano, an entailed analysis and evaluation of something. Argument, a set of reasons given to prove a statement or a stance. To help you in your critical reading, listed below are the steps or modes of analysis that are reflected in three types of reading and discussion as presented by Danielle Kurland in 2000. What a text says is the restatement. At first, you simply talk about the same topic as what is written in the original text. What the text does is the description. Next, you discuss and examine the aspects of the discussion or the content. Sa laman na po ngayon, no? Yung laman ng ating binasa na literary text. And then the third one, what a text means is the interpretation. Paano naman po natin i-analyze at i-assert yung mga meaning ng mga nasa text. Okay. And then, first is to recognize the author's purpose. Second is to understand the tone. Happy ba? Sad pa? Yung mood or tone of the text. And then classify the nature of the language, used by the author. And the third one is to recognize bias, which involves classifying the nature of patterns of choice and language used in the text. So we have here just a glimpse of the following critical reading strategies that will help you cope with different reading types. We have previewing, from the word preview. Okay, so bago daw po natin basahin ang isang text, preview it by gathering important information about it. Pwede maghanap po tayo ng mga other information na tungkol po dun sa babasahin po natin text. So when you preview a text, you skim it to get the big picture. Pwedeng i-glance po natin yung book na binabasa po natin. Next is annotating. Annotating involves highlighting. So mag-highlight na po tayo or maglalagay na po tayo ng mga important ideas or important notes coming from the text. Halimbawa po, yung kung sentence na to, how I understand it is like this. You're going to write it on maybe on the side part of your notebook or of your book or even paper. Next is contextualizing. So another steps or another strategy on how are we going to read critically will be the contextualizing. So when you contextualize, you consider the historical, the cultural, or biographical context of the text. Identify the context in which the text was written. Aalamin mo po muna kung sino yung nagsulat, kung bakit po niya isinulat iyon, pwedeng based po ba siya sa experience po niya. So we're going to have researches, just few researches about the text itself. Next is outlining and summarizing. Outlining and summarizing the text help you identify the main idea in the text and express them again in your own words. Kung paano niyo po naiintindihan yung text or yung mga pangyayari doon po sa ating stories or any literary text. Next will be the analyzing. Ano daw po yung analyzing? Analyzing a text deals with examining the information presented to support the author's arguments. In analyzing a text, you look at the evidence, sources, and author's bias or biases. Next is rereading. This can help. Okay? You just need to reread kung hindi mo pa siya naiintindihan in one glance. Especially now that you're using your modules. If you don't, and if you do not understand the certain page on one reading, and then just try to reread it. Okay? Rereading requires a repeated examination of the text to enable you to improve your comprehension of the text and to identify ideas that you may not have noticed in initial reading. Pwede po kasi meron po tayong mga tauhan na ideas na kailangan po pala nating malaman. Next is responding. After you have developed a clear understanding of the text, you are now ready to respond to the text. Okay? Responding to the text means drawing meaning. Ano kaya yung mga naiintindihan po natin? Parang sharing na po ng thoughts na nakuha natin based doon sa binasa po nating kwento. So, you just draw meaning from what you have read and presenting it in writing or talking about it to others. Ay, based doon sa nabasa ko, ganito daw siya. Ganito daw ang nangyari. How about you? Paano mo naiintindihan yung nabasa nating kwento? So it's just about sharing or responding to the text that you have already read. Sharing the information that you gain from a text with others who have read the same text is a good way to check your understanding. Kung nagtugma ba yung mga explanation ninyo, ibig sabihin baka tumpak. Yun po talaga ang meaning ng text na binasa po. Yan. So just remember, biographical context from the word biography. This context requires the reader to analyze the life experience of the author, yung nagsulat, biography, to understand the literary text. Next, socio-cultural. If you can still remember, it is through analyzing the social, economic, political, and cultural standpoint of the literary text. The third one is the linguistic context, from the word linguistic, or analyzing the language, form, and structure of the text. From the word context, this is the background of the text, which may have been influenced by author's life, language, society, and culture. And critical reading strategies now are different strategies may be employed in analyzing the text using the aforementioned context, using biographical, sociocultural context, and linguistic context. So the main context of a literary work, how can knowledge of the various contexts of a literary work enhance our understanding and appreciation of the text? So this will be the last part of our discussion. We have literary context. To understand and appreciate a literary selection, the reader must understand the significant context in which it was written. Biographical context. What biographical facts has the author used in the text? What insights do readers acquire about the author's life by reading the text? And lastly, we have the third one, historical context. What specific historical events were happening when the work was being composed? What historical events does this work deal with? And last one, in what ways if history influenced the writer's outlook. So ito po yung mga kailangan po natin munang malaman. Kailangan nating itanong before po tayo magbasa or while reading the certain text or literary text. So that's all. Thank you for listening. See you again next time. Bye.